If the US owes $38 trillion, Europe's on the hook for $14 trillion, Japan's buried under $9 trillion, and global debt just hit $315 trillion, almost 3 times what the entire world makes in a year. Then who the hell is getting paid? Like, seriously, if everyone owes money, who's sitting there collecting checks? That's the question that's gonna blow your mind today, because the answer isn't what you think, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's where it gets wild. According to the Institute of International Finance, global debt hit that insane $315 trillion mark in early 2025. That's roughly 290% of global GDP, meaning we owe almost 3 times more than we actually produce. The United States alone is sitting on over $38 trillion in federal debt, according to the Treasury Department's own numbers. Japan's debt-to-GDP ratio is cruising past 240%. Every major economy is drowning in red ink. But here's the kicker. The whole system keeps humming along like nothing's wrong. Stock markets are hitting record highs. People are getting loans. Governments are still spending. So what gives? If debt is supposed to be this scary thing we gotta pay back, why does nobody seem worried about actually paying it back? Let me hit you with something that'll flip your brain. Modern debt isn't designed to be repaid. I know that sounds crazy, but stick with me. When the US government issues a treasury bond, they're not sitting there planning to hand you back that principal in full and call it a day. Instead, when those bonds mature, they just issue new bonds to pay off the old ones. It's called rolling over debt, and according to the Congressional Budget Office, this has been standard practice for decades. Think of it like this. You know how you might pay off one credit card with another credit card. That's basically what governments do, except on a trillion-dollar scale, and somehow it's considered totally legit. The Federal Reserve even admits in their own documentation that the national debt will likely never be paid down to zero, because that's not how the system works anymore. So who actually owns all this debt? Let's zoom in on America because it's the clearest example. According to the U.S. Treasury's Treasury International Capital data, about 70% of U.S. debt is owned by Americans. Yeah, you heard that right. We owe it to ourselves. Here's the breakdown. The Federal Reserve holds about $5 trillion of it, making them one of the biggest holders. Social Security and other government trust funds hold another $6 trillion. Then you've got U.S. banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and regular Americans with savings bonds. Foreign governments only hold about 30%, and even that's split between Japan, China, and dozens of other countries. So when politicians freak out about the national debt, they're basically freaking out about money we owe to, well, us. It's like being mad at yourself for lending yourself $20. Now here's where the magic trick happens, and this is the part that changes everything. Debt isn't just something governments owe anymore. Debt became money itself. Back in the day, money was tied to gold. You could literally walk into a bank and trade your dollar for actual gold. But in 1971, President Nixon ended that system. And according to the Federal Reserve's own historical records, that's when everything shifted. Money stopped being backed by physical gold and started being backed by faith in government debt. When you hold a dollar bill today, you're basically holding a tiny piece of government debt. It's an IOU that only has value because we all agree it has value. The entire global financial system now runs on sovereign bonds, government debt that acts as the foundation for every other financial instrument out there. According to the Bank for International Settlements, these government bonds are used as collateral for literally trillions in private lending. They're the bedrock. Without government debt, modern banking collapses. Let me blow your mind even further. Central banks create money by creating debt. This is straight from the Federal Reserve's own education materials. When the Fed wants to inject money into the economy, they don't print it. Well, they kinda do, but the real action happens digitally. They buy government bonds from banks, and in exchange, they credit those banks' accounts with new money that didn't exist before. Boom. Money created out of thin air, but it's not really out of thin air. It's out of debt. The Fed now holds over $7 trillion in assets, mostly treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities, according to their balance sheet data. Every dollar of that represents money they created by purchasing debt. This is why you'll hear people say, money is debt. It's not a metaphor. It's literally how the system works. When you take out a mortgage, the bank doesn't have that money sitting in a vault. They create it when they issue your loan, backed by your promise to repay. That's debt creating money, and it happens millions of times a day across the entire economy. So let's get back to the big question. If debt is money and money is debt, and everyone's in debt to everyone else, then who's the actual creditor? The answer is going to sound weird, but bear with me. The creditor is the system itself. It's not a person. It's not a country. It's not some shadowy cabal of billionaires, although they definitely benefit from understanding how this works. The creditor is confidence. It's trust. It's the collective belief that tomorrow, these IOUs will still be worth something. According to a study by the International Monetary Fund, the entire global financial system is built on the assumption that major governments will never default. Not because they'll pay everything back, but because they'll always be able to roll over their debt and issue new bonds. As long as people believe that, the system works. The second that confidence cracks, that's when things get scary. We saw a glimpse of this during the 2008 financial crisis, when confidence in mortgage-backed securities evaporated and the whole thing nearly collapsed. Here's the part that really trips people up. What would happen if governments actually tried to pay off their debt? Like, really tried? According to economists at the Levy Economics Institute, if the U.S. government ran surpluses and paid down the national debt significantly, it would actually tank the economy. Here's why. Government debt is private wealth. When the government runs a deficit, it's pumping money into the private sector. When it runs a surplus, it's pulling money out. If the government paid off all its debt, that would mean they pulled trillions of dollars out of the economy, and all those bonds that pension funds, banks, and retirees depend on would disappear. The entire financial system uses government bonds as the safest, most stable asset. If those vanished, what would replace them? Nothing has the same level of trust. The last time the U.S. came close to paying off its debt was in 1835 under Andrew Jackson, and according to historical records, it triggered a massive financial panic just a few years later because there was no safe place to park money. So let's zoom out and see the full picture. The global debt system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. Debt isn't a burden that needs to be eliminated. It's the fuel that runs modern economies. According to the World Bank, developing countries owe about $9 trillion in external debt, and they're not paying that back either. They're servicing it, meaning they pay the interest and keep rolling it over. The real game isn't about paying back principal. It's about maintaining access to credit markets. As long as investors believe you can service your debt, they'll keep lending. The moment they don't, your interest rates spike and you get cut off. Like what happened to Greece in 2010 or Argentina multiple times over the past few decades. The creditors in those cases weren't individuals. They were bond markets, the collective judgment of investors worldwide. When confidence disappears, the music stops and somebody's left without a chair. But for major economies like the US, Europe, and Japan, confidence has been rock solid because they control their own currencies and can always print more money to service debt. That's the ultimate cheat code. And it's why, according to the Federal Reserve, the US will never involuntarily default on its debt. So here it is, the truth bomb. The creditor is all of us, and also none of us. It's not about who gets paid back, because nobody's really getting paid back in the traditional sense. It's about who keeps playing the game. Pension funds need safe returns, so they buy government bonds. Banks need collateral, so they hold treasury securities. Foreign governments need stable reserves, so they park money in U.S. debt. And central banks need tools to control the economy, so they buy and sell bonds to manage money supply. According to research from the Bank for International Settlements, the entire $315 trillion debt mountain isn't a problem looking for a solution. It's the solution, the architecture of a system where promises create value and trust manufactures reality. The debt doesn't exist to be paid off. It exists to circulate, to be traded, to provide stability in a world where value is whatever we collectively decide it is. And that's the mind-bending reality of global debt. It's not a crisis waiting to happen. It's the operating system of modern civilization. Now you know why nobody's freaking out about paying it back, because the whole point is that they never will. If this changed how you see money, hit that like button, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe, because we're just getting started peeling back the layers of how this world really works. Catch you in the next one.